I'll never forget the sound of that slap echoing through the wedding hall. The bride's diamond ring cut my cheek as 300 guests gasped. She called me trash and had security drag me out, but what she didn't know? I was about to become her sister-in-law. And karma? Karma was already on its way. If you love stories about karma and sweet revenge, you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a story. Trust me, you'll want to see how this ends. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. My name is Olivia, and a year ago I was just trying to survive. I was 24, working as a waitress for an upscale catering company, and every single day felt like a battle. My mother had passed away the year before, leaving me to take care of my younger brother, Danny. He was only 16 and had a chronic condition that required expensive medication every month, the kind of medication that costs more than our rent, so I worked double shifts, picked up every extra assignment I could get, and dreamed of a day when I wouldn't have to count every single dollar. When my manager told me I'd been assigned to work at the biggest wedding of the season, I actually cried with relief. This wasn't just any wedding. This was Christina Whitmore's wedding, daughter of one of the city's biggest real estate moguls. The event was being held at the Grand Celestial Hotel, the kind of place where a single dinner plate probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. But more importantly, this gig paid triple our normal rate. That money would cover Danny's medication for 3 whole months. 3 months of not lying awake at night, calculating and recalculating our budget. 3 months of breathing room. My co-worker, an older woman named Martha, grabbed my arm before I left that day. "Olivia, honey, be careful," she said, her eyes serious. "That bride is a nightmare. I worked her engagement party. She made a server cry because the napkins were folded wrong. Just stay out of her way and do your job." I nodded, promising myself I'd be invisible. I'd keep my head down, work hard, and get through it. I had to. Danny needed me. The day of the wedding, I arrived 2 hours early to help set up. The ballroom was like something out of a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting rainbow light across white marble floors. There were thousands of ivory roses and ice sculptures, and a champagne fountain that probably cost more than a car. Everything was perfect, pristine, almost intimidating in its beauty. Then I saw her. Christina Whitmore, the bride herself, standing in the center of it all like a queen surveying her kingdom. She was stunning, I'll give her that. Her wedding dress must have cost a fortune, covered in crystals that caught the light with every movement. Her makeup was flawless, her hair swept up in an elegant style. But when she opened her mouth, the illusion shattered. She was screaming at a florist, a small woman who looked terrified. "These roses are the wrong shade. I said ivory, not cream. Are you stupid or just incompetent?" The florist was actually crying, trying to explain they were the exact roses Christina had approved, but the bride didn't care. She threw her bouquet at the woman's feet and stormed off. Later, I watched her hurl a plate of appetizers at a waiter because they were arranged wrong. She made a makeup artist redo her lipstick 4 times, calling her useless and pathetic. Every person she spoke to, she treated like dirt beneath her expensive shoes. I felt sick watching it, but I reminded myself why I was there. For Danny. Just get through this, Olivia. Stay invisible. The ceremony was beautiful, I suppose. I was too busy working to really watch. Then came the reception, and that's when my nightmare began. The ballroom was packed with 300 guests, all dressed in designer gowns and expensive suits. I was serving champagne, carefully balancing a silver tray loaded with crystal glasses, weaving through the crowd. The music was loud, people were laughing and dancing, and I was so focused on not spilling anything that I didn't see the drunk guest stumbling backward until it was too late. He slammed into me with full force. The tray flew from my hands and everything happened in slow motion. I watched helplessly as champagne splashed through the air and a few drops landed on Christina's dress. Just a few drops, barely noticeable on the long train of her gown. But she noticed. The entire ballroom went silent. It was like someone had cut the music and sucked all the air out of the room. Christina turned slowly, her eyes locking onto me, and the rage in them made my blood run cold. I immediately dropped to my knees, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might explode. "I'm so sorry," Please, it was an accident. Let me clean it, I begged, reaching for a napkin, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip it. But before I could even stand up, I felt the impact. The slap came out of nowhere, so hard that I fell sideways onto the marble floor. Pain exploded across my face and I tasted blood. My cheek felt like it was on fire. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard her screaming, "You ruined my dress, you worthless piece of trash!" Christina was standing over me, her face twisted with fury. I tried to get up, tears already streaming down my face, but she slapped me again before I could even straighten, this time with her other hand and harder. I heard someone in the crowd gasp. People were pulling out their phones, recording. "Please," I sobbed. "I'm sorry, it was an accident, I didn't mean to—" "Accident!" she shrieked. "You did this on purpose because you're jealous of me. Look at you, you pathetic little nobody." Then she grabbed the collar of my uniform and pulled. The fabric ripped with a terrible tearing sound from my shoulder all the way down to my waist. I was left holding the torn pieces, trying desperately to cover myself while 300 people stared and whispered and recorded my humiliation. Christina's diamond ring had cut my cheek. I could feel warm blood dripping down my face onto my neck, staining what was left of my uniform. I was shaking so hard I couldn't stop, couldn't think, couldn't even properly cry anymore. "Look at you!" Christina shouted to the crowd, gesturing at me like I was an exhibit. "This is what trash looks like. This is what happens when you let people who don't belong think they can be in our world." She snapped her fingers at security. "Get this disgusting girl out of my sight. Call the police. I want her arrested for assault and destruction of property. Please." I tried one more time, my voice barely a whisper. "I need this job. My brother is sick. He needs medicine. Please don't. I don't care if your whole family is dying," she screamed in my face. "You're nothing. You'll always be nothing." 2 security guards grabbed me by my arms, yanking me to my feet. They dragged me through the ballroom while Christina's voice followed me. "And you'll never work in this city again. I'll make sure of it. You'll be homeless by next week." The last thing I saw before they threw me out the back service entrance was 300 faces staring at me, some shocked, some disgusted, all of them watching my complete destruction. They literally threw me out into the rain. I landed hard on the wet pavement behind the hotel, the impact knocking the wind out of me. I just lay there in the rain, bleeding, soaked through, my uniform torn, unable to move, unable to process what had just happened. My phone was ringing in my pocket, but I couldn't bring myself to answer it. I later found out it was the hospital, calling about Danny's medication bill that was overdue. I don't know how long I sat there in that alley, rain mixing with blood and tears on my face. Eventually, a kind kitchen worker, an elderly woman who'd seen what happened, brought me a towel and some bandages. She helped me clean the cut on my face, which was deeper than I thought. "That girl is evil," she said quietly, wrapping the towel around my shoulders. "Pure evil. But God sees everything, child. You remember that." I got home around 2 in the morning. Danny was still awake, sitting on our worn couch, waiting for me. The moment he saw my face, torn clothes, and the hollow look in my eyes, he knew something terrible had happened. I broke down and told him everything while he held me, and I saw tears in his eyes too. Not for himself, but for me. The next morning, I got the call. The catering company fired me. They said Christina's family had threatened to pull all their business unless I was terminated immediately. But it got worse. 2 days later, I received a letter from a law firm. Christina's family was suing me for $50,000 for intentional destruction of designer property and emotional distress. $50,000. I didn't have $50. I couldn't afford a lawyer. I couldn't afford anything. I applied to 30 different jobs over the next 2 weeks. Every single one rejected me. I found out later that Christina's family had made calls, blacklisted me from every catering company, restaurant, and hotel in the city. I was running out of money fast. Danny's medication was due, and I had no way to pay for it. I felt like I was drowning, and there was no one to pull me out. Finally, I found a job at a tiny rundown cafe on the edge of town, the kind of place with cracked vinyl seats and flickering lights. It paid barely enough to cover rent, let alone medication, but it was all I could get, so I took it. I started wearing a scarf around my neck and face, trying to hide the scar Christina's ring had left on my cheek. I didn't want people asking questions I couldn't bear to answer. That's when Daniel walked into my life. He came into the cafe on a rainy Tuesday, shaking water from his dark hair. He was handsome in an understated way, wearing expensive clothes but nothing flashy. He ordered black coffee and apple pie and sat in the corner booth, reading a book. When I brought his check, he left a $50 tip on a $5 order. I tried to give it back, thinking it was a mistake, but he just smiled and said, "You look like you could use it." He came back the next day, and the next. Always the same order, always the same generous tip, always kind. After a week, he finally introduced himself, Daniel. He had warm brown eyes and a smile that actually reached them. He seemed sad about something, like he was carrying weight I couldn't see. We started talking during my breaks, little conversations at first, about the weather, about the terrible coffee the cafe served, about nothing important. But slowly, those conversations grew deeper. He made me laugh for the first time since that horrible night. He asked about the scar on my face once, gently, and I changed the subject. He didn't push. There was something mysterious about him. He said he worked in business, but never elaborated. He was vague about his family, only saying they were complicated. He dressed well but drove an older car. He was clearly educated and cultured, but never condescending. After 2 weeks, he asked me out properly for dinner at a real restaurant. I hesitated. I was terrified to trust anyone after what Christina had done to me. But Danny encouraged me. "You deserve happiness, sis," he said. "Not everyone is like that horrible woman." So I said yes. Dating Daniel was like stepping into sunlight after living in darkness. He was genuinely kind, not just to me, but to everyone. He treated waiters with respect, helped elderly people carry groceries, donated to homeless people without making a show of it. When he found out about Danny's condition, he quietly paid for 3 months of medication without even telling me. I only found out when the pharmacy called to say our bill was covered. He took me to a proper doctor to get my scar treated, holding my hand the whole time. We dated for 3 months, and they were the happiest 3 months I'd had in years. But there were odd moments. He never talked about his family, and when I asked about them, he'd change the subject. He'd get nervous when weddings were mentioned. Once, when I was telling him about a wedding I'd worked before the incident, he went completely pale and had to step outside for air. I suspected he came from money, but I didn't push. Everyone has secrets. Then the lawyers sent a final notice. Christina's family was demanding the $50,000, or they'd take me to court. I panicked. I'd be destroyed. There was no way out. I finally broke down and told Daniel everything. The wedding, the accident, the slaps, the torn uniform, the humiliation, being thrown out in the rain, losing my job, the lawsuit, all of it. I didn't mention the bride's name, just described her as the most terrible person I'd ever met. As I talked, Daniel's face went through a dozen emotions. Shock, anger, horror, and something else I couldn't identify. When I finished, he was completely silent. His hands were shaking. "When was this wedding?" he asked quietly. I told him the date. "What hotel?" I told him. "The Grand Celestial." He closed his eyes, and I saw his jaw clench. "Olivia, I need to tell you something, but not here. Can you come to my place tomorrow? There's something you need to know before we go any further." The dread in his voice terrified me. The next day, he picked me up and drove to an enormous estate outside the city. I stared at the mansion as we pulled up the long driveway. "Daniel, who lives here?" "My family," he said quietly. "And I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner." Before I could ask what he meant, the front door opened and an older couple came out. They were dressed elegantly but welcomed me warmly. Daniel's parents. They seemed genuinely kind, asking me about myself with real interest. They treated me like I mattered, which was more than I'd expected from wealthy people after my experience with Christina. We sat down for dinner in a dining room that looked like it belonged in a palace. I felt completely out of place, but Daniel held my hand under the table, giving me courage. His parents asked about my work, my brother, my life. I was honest, and they seemed to respect that. Then Daniel's father said something that made my stomach drop. Our daughter and her husband should be joining us shortly. Daniel's grip on my hand tightened painfully. I looked at him, confused, and saw fear in his eyes. The dining room door opened, and there she was. Christina walked in, laughing at something her husband had said. The moment her eyes landed on me, her champagne glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the marble floor. The laughter died. The room went silent. She stood frozen, her face cycling through shock, recognition, and pure rage. "What is she doing here?" Her voice was shaking. Daniel stood up, still holding my hand. "Christina, this is Olivia, my girlfriend." I watched the color drain from her face, then flood back in angry red blotches. "Are you insane?" she shrieked. "That's the waitress who ruined my wedding, that clumsy, worthless piece of trash who destroyed my dress." "Enough." Daniel's voice was harder than I'd ever heard it. "I know what happened, Christina. I know what you did to her." "What I did?" "She destroyed my $30,000 dress. You slapped her. Twice. You tore her clothes. You had her thrown out in the rain like garbage. And then you sued her for money she doesn't have because you wanted to destroy her life completely." Their parents were staring at Christina with expressions I couldn't read. Their father stood up slowly. "Christina, is this true?" She tried to defend herself, but the words came out jumbled and desperate. "It was my wedding. She ruined it. People like her need to know their place." "People like her?" Her mother's voice was ice cold. "What has happened to you?" Christina whirled on me, her face twisted with hate. "This is your fault. You came here to ruin my life. You're trying to steal my family." I finally found my voice, though it shook. "I didn't even know who Daniel was until 5 minutes ago. I never wanted revenge. I just wanted to survive what you did to me." I stood up, facing her directly. "You took my job. You're suing me for $50,000 I don't have. You hurt me and humiliated me in front of 300 people, and you don't even remember my name." "Why should I remember you?" she spat. "Because I'm a person. Just like you, and I didn't deserve what you did to me." Daniel's mother was crying now, her hand covering her mouth as she stared at the fading scar on my cheek. Her father's face was stone. Daniel pulled me close to his side. "I love her, Christina. And I'm not breaking up with her. You can accept that, or you can leave." "Choose!" Christina screamed. "Me or her? Your sister or some nobody?" "I choose Olivia. Every single time." The sound Christina made was almost inhuman. She grabbed her purse and stormed out, her husband running after her with an apologetic look back at his in-laws. What happened next unfolded over the following months like divine justice. The video of Christina slapping me, which had been posted by wedding guests, went massively viral. 5 million views in a week. News outlets picked it up. Socialite brutally attacks waitress at her own wedding. Christina's face was everywhere, and people were furious. Someone started a GoFundMe for me that raised $80,000. Meanwhile, Christina lost every brand sponsorship, every influencer deal. Her husband's family was mortified. Within 2 months, he filed for divorce, saying he couldn't be married to someone so cruel. Daniel's father, who was a powerful attorney, didn't just drop the lawsuit against me. He threatened to countersue Christina for assault and defamation. She was forced to pay me $25,000 in damages. The money covered Danny's medication for 2 years. With the GoFundMe money, I enrolled in nursing school. I wanted to help people like my brother, people who were struggling and needed someone who understood. Daniel proposed after 8 months together, and I said yes with tears of joy streaming down my face. We planned our wedding at the same hotel where Christina's had been. It felt like reclaiming that space, taking back the power she'd stolen from me. I wore a beautiful champagne-colored dress, not ivory like hers. When the day came, Christina was forced to attend as Daniel's sister. She sat in the back, stone-faced, while everyone celebrated the love between her brother and the woman she'd tried to destroy. During my reception speech, I looked right at her. A year ago, I was at my lowest point in this very room. Someone hurt me deeply. But that pain led me to the love of my life, to a family who values kindness over status, and to a strength I didn't know I had. I paused. I forgive you, not for you, but for me, because holding on to hate only hurts yourself. Christina's eyes filled with tears, but she couldn't leave without causing more scandal. She sat there and watched as I danced with Daniel, surrounded by people who loved me for who I was, not what I could give them. Looking back, that slap was the worst and best thing that ever happened to me. Christina tried to destroy me because she thought I was beneath her, but her cruelty revealed her true character, and karma made sure everyone saw it. I got justice, love, and a family that values kindness over status. Christina lost everything trying to prove she was better than me. That scar on my face has faded now, but it reminds me every day. Treat people with dignity, no matter who they are. Because you never know. The person you hurt today might be the person who shows you mercy tomorrow. So what do you think? Did Christina get what she deserved? Or was karma too harsh? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I love hearing your opinions. If this story gave you chills and made you believe in justice, smash that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon because I've got more incredible true stories coming your way. Remember, kindness is free, but cruelty always comes with a price. I'll see you in the next story, and until then, stay kind and stay strong.